Whiskers, a wise, old cat, sat by the window, lost in thought. Memories of his past flooded his mind. He recalled the day he met his beautiful wife, Fluffy. Their eyes locked, and it was love at first sight. Their wedding was a grand affair, with catnip and treats galore. Ms. Whiskers, a charming cat lady, prepared for her big date. She visited the feline parlor, where stylists pampered her. First, a soothing bath with lavender shampoo. Next, a stylish grooming session, complete with glittering nail polish. Ms. Whiskers arrived at the upscale Whisker Bistro. Her boyfriend, handsome Tom, awaited her, dashing in his tailored tuxedo. Their eyes locked, and the evening began. Over delectable salmon and cream, they shared laughter and stories. Tom impressed Ms. Whiskers with his adventurous spirit and kind heart. Their whirlwind romance blossomed. More dates followed, each sweeter than the last. Tom proposed during a moonlit cruise. Overjoyed, Ms. Whiskers accepted. Their fairy-tale wedding took place at the Whisker Bistro. Feline friends and family gathered to celebrate. Ms. Whiskers shone in her lace gown, Tom dashing in his tuxedo. Mr. and Mrs. Whiskers tied the knot and started a new life together. Soon, they discovered Mrs. Whiskers was expecting. Overjoyed, they rushed to the vet for confirmation. The ultrasound revealed a tiny heartbeat, filling their hearts with delight. Mrs. Whiskers cherished every moment of her pregnancy, pampered by her loving husband. Finally, the big day arrived. Mrs. Whiskers gave birth to an adorable kitten. The proud parents were overjoyed, holding their little bundle of joy. Mr. and Mrs. Whiskers spent blissful days playing, cuddling, and watching their kitten grow. Their home was filled with laughter and love. Whiskers and her wife, Fluffy, eagerly anticipated disco night at the feline club. They dressed to impress, donning sparkling collars and glittering bows. Time to leave. Kittens asleep, Whiskers said, kissing their little ball of fur, Mittens. She explored the house, leaving a trail of chaos, overturned vases, shredded curtains, and pizza boxes torn apart. Mittens devoured the pizza, covering herself in cheesy goodness. When Whiskers and Fluffy returned home, they gasped at the mess. Mittens, what have you done? Whiskers laughed, scooping up their little troublemaker. Fluffy smiled, don't worry, Daddy's got this. Together, they cleaned up the chaos. Whiskers bathed Mittens, washing away pizza stains. Afterward, Fluffy cooked a delicious feast, tuna stir-fry, salmon bites, and catnip-infused treats. The family gathered around the dinner table, enjoying their meal together. Mittens, you may be mischievous, but we love you, Whiskers said, scratching her ears. As the years passed, Mr. and Mrs. Whiskers' kittens grew into rambunctious youngsters. They filled the house with energy, playing and making messes everywhere. Kitchen floors were covered in spills, and toys littered every room. Mrs. Whiskers, who cherished a calm and clean home, would often scold them, Whiskers, please clean up. But the kittens didn't. One day, Mrs. Whiskers was cooking dinner in the kitchen when her mischievous kittens started fighting with each other. The quarrel escalated, filling the house with noise. Mrs. Whiskers promptly stopped cooking and intervened, you both love each other, so why fight? The kittens realized their mistake, apologized, and hugged each other. Understand. One chaotic day, amidst the mess, Mrs. Whiskers slipped on ketchup and fell. She was rushed to the hospital, leaving Mr. Whiskers worried. Upon her return, the kittens hugged her, tears in their eyes, promising, we're sorry, Mommy, we won't make a mess again. However, their youthful energy soon took over, and the messes continued. As they grew older, the kittens prepared for school. Mr. and Mrs. Whiskers proudly sat with them at the breakfast table, enjoying a morning meal together. One day, Mr. and Mrs. Whiskers left their mischievous kitten home alone while they went grocery shopping. They underestimated their little ball of energy, leaving a matchbox within reach. Curiosity got the better of the kitten, and he accidentally set the house ablaze. Meanwhile, Mr. and Mrs. Whiskers received a frantic call, your house is on fire. Rushing back home, they found their house engulfed in flames. Firefighters arrived, but Mr. Whiskers bravely dashed inside to rescue his kitten. With smoke filling his lungs, Mr. Whiskers scooped up his kitten and emerged safely outside. Mrs. Whiskers was overwhelmed with relief. "This is a wake-up call," Mrs. Whiskers said, trembling. "We must always prioritize our kittens." Mr. and Mrs. Whiskers' love for their kitten only grew stronger. Mr. and Mrs. Whiskers' kittens had grown up, and it was their first day of school. The family sat at the dining table, enjoying breakfast together. Mr. Whiskers decided to drop off his kitten at school. Mrs. Whiskers bid farewell, and Mr. Whiskers drove their kitten to school. Afterward, he headed to the office. Unbeknownst to them, terrorists infiltrated the school. Mr. Whiskers was at the office, oblivious to the danger, while Mrs. Whiskers was busy with household chores. Struck. Mrs. Whiskers watched in horror as breaking news reported terrorists taking hostages at the kitten school. Panicked, she called Mr. Whiskers, who sprang into action. Determined to save his kittens, he rushed to the school. With bravery in his heart, Mr. Whiskers confronted the terrorists, using his cunning and agility to outsmart them. The kittens were freed, and the school was saved. As the family reunited, Mrs. Whiskers praised Mr. Whiskers. "You're a true superhero, Daddy." The kittens nodded in agreement, hugging their heroic father. From then on, the family cherished their time together, appreciating the value of love, safety, and a clean home.